Minister, as a former member of Offaly County Council, the reintroduction of the local improvement scheme at the National Ploughing Championships in Tullamore was really welcome. I know that you and I had many conversations about how valuable this particular scheme is to the local authorities and to the communities that are benefiting from them. And I wonder if you could let me know how much funding has been allocated to this scheme county by county. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy, you were somebody that lobbied very hard for that scheme. We had the scheme for many years. The Local Improvement Scheme, or LIS, is a programme for improvement works on small private or non-public roads in rural areas. The scheme is funded by my department and is administered through the local authorities. As the Deputy may be aware, there was no dedicated funding for this scheme for a number of years due to constraints on public expenditure. However, I was very conscious of the underlying demand for the scheme in rural areas throughout the country. I therefore announced the provision of £10 million to local authorities for a local improvement scheme in September 2017. Based on the demand and the capacity of local authorities to complete works before the end of 2017, I allocated a further £7.4 million to local authorities for LIS roads in November last year. In February of this year, I allocated £10.8 million to local authorities across the country under the 2018 LIS scheme. Given the continuing level of demand for this funding in rural communities across Ireland, I also asked the local authority to prepare a secondary list of roads which they could complete if the further funding became available for the scheme during the year. Following on from this, on the 26th of October last, I announced a further round of £10 million in funding to the local authorities. The allocations on a county-by-county basis for both of these rounds of funding are available on my department's website. For the Deputy's information, County Offaly was allocated €290,766 under the first round of the LIS this year, and an additional €353,889 was allocated under the round 2, giving a total allocation of €644,654 to Offaly to advance LIS works in 2018. It is clear that there is a continuing demand for LIS funding in rural communities across Ireland, and I have secured an allocation of £10 million in my department's vote for 2019, which will enable me to continue to provide much-needed funding for the LIS.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive answer, Minister, and I'm delighted to let you know that Offaly County Council are wasting no time in spending the funding allocation. Can I ask you, Minister, if you might consider something which is the fact that so much of our road in Offaly is on peat, and that including a lot of those private roads, and if you might consider developing a specific scheme that would take that into account, because with the advent of climate change and with the fact that the peat roads only last for 5 years as against 20, which is what you'd be expecting, if that's something that you might take into account, because it's a concern of a lot of the engineers in Offaly.
Minister's 1 minute.
Thank you, Deputy, again. And you know, at the moment, I'm actually looking at the LIS scheme. I'm looking at all my schemes. I'm reviewing all the schemes. And what I want to do is, particularly with the LIS and the local improvement scheme, a lot of people don't realise. And, you know, I get a lot of criticism from certain Dublin media about the LIS scheme. But they'll never have to worry about an LIS road. They'll never have to be going looking to get funding to do a private. It'll be done for them by Dublin County Council or Dublin City Council, whatever the case may be. This are people, and you know this, these are people that are paying their property tax, that are paying their taxes, that are paying their dues to the state, and they are entitled to have a road into their home and into their house. And that's why the question you asked me, I am, and if you know, at something now that you've asked me I'll look at, I'm looking at this LIS scheme because it is working. There's a big demand for it. I wish I had more money. I wish other departments would come in and match some of that funding. I would love, you know, other departments to come in, because every £10 million that I allocate for the roads is £10 million worth of roads that doesn't have to be done the following year. And I see some counties, to be fair, have done very well. And I was reading in one of the local papers there recently, I think it was Westmeath, if they got another 2 or 3 years, they'd have all their LIS roads done.
Final question, Deputy Corcoran Kennedy.
And I very much welcome the fact that you're reviewing it, Minister, because there is one issue that has come to my attention, which is some of the non-public or private roads that are used used by landowners, maybe people going in to cut turf, or they have land in there, but there may not be a dwelling house on it. The dwelling houses may have had older people pass away or whatever, and they're no longer being used. So if that would be something that you could take into account, because they certainly need assistance as well.
Thank you, Deputy. I am reviewing the scheme, and I will continue to review it, and it's something that I look at. When I came into office, I changed the local contribution for down to 15% for 5 houses and more, and for 5 houses and less, I brought it down to 10%. And it's something I'm looking at, because you have raised a very good question that's causing a big problem in many areas, where there is big roads, and there may be only one, or there have to be more than one. If there's only 2 people on it, I had an incident the other day where there was a 4,500 local contribution. 4,500 is a lot of money for 2 families. There were 2 young families. One was after building a house. It's something I need to look at, and I have to look at the scheme.